Our reading from the Gospels this morning is from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all of the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and worship him." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. When I was younger, much younger, living in Laverne, Minnesota, attending First Baptist Church, whenever missionaries came through town, and they came through quite frequently, and they speak at the church and they put on slideshows and tell us what their ministry was like, they inevitably stayed at our house. We had a big old Victorian with lots of rooms, and there was plenty of space. Sometime during that service, that special service for the missionaries, a love gift would be taken. The offering plate would be passed for the second time in the service, and everybody would be asked to give something specifically for that missionary and their ministry. I remember looking at the amount of money being put in and wondering, they won't even be able to buy enough gas to get out of town. That might have been the hope. But love gifts have long had a tradition. We can go back at least to the Apostle Paul, who, when he was serving churches and starting churches, tried pretty successfully to raise a love gift to take back to Jerusalem, where there was a famine and poverty, and it was in the years just preceding the destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman Empire. In our reading today, both readings mention gifts. Both readings mention gold and frankincense. Our reading from the gospel also mentioned myrrh as gifts that were being brought. On Epiphany, which really was yesterday, Epiphany, like Christmas, has a given date. Christmas is always the 25th of December, and Epiphany is always the 6th of January. Epiphany celebrates the coming of the Magi. I find it interesting that we don't know their names, but we know their gifts. Somehow, I don't think that is all that unusual. I think that if I went around this sanctuary this morning and had a person stand and say, "How many of you know who this is?" in just about every case, there would be some hands that would stay down and say, I don't know you. And yet, week in and week out, as we work together as a church, we receive the gifts. the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh that is in each one of our lives, making us rich and enriching the church. We need these gifts. Oh, we need the offering gifts too. But let's be really honest. We need the gifts that you bring to this community, who you really are. Each of us in our life, in our faith journey, have followed a star. And where has that star led us? Well, ultimately, of course, it has led us to this place, and it has led us to Jesus. But on the way, we've gone through many different directions. We've taken many different roads to get to this place. Some of us were born here, and this is the only church we know. Some of us have come recently, and we're still learning how things work. Some of us, English is a second language, and we work really hard to be able to hear and to communicate with one another. Some of us are deaf, and it's difficult then for communication to take place then as well. For our deaf friends, there are sermons available for them so that they can follow along and know what the sermon was without trying to read lips from out there. But they bring us gifts as well as all these other gifts. And those gifts come as we follow that star. The gifts come through making the journey. The gifts come each and every day of our faith walk. And none of our faith walks are the same. So the gift is that we share them with one another. And in the sharing of those gifts, we become stronger as individuals, and we become a stronger church. The Apostle Paul knew when he collected that offering for the church in Jerusalem, he knew that in the very act of giving and in making connection with a church far away, that there would be growth, and that this act would be a gift to the church. This morning also happens to be a day when we ordain an elder, where we install new deacons, where we install a board and officials of the board for a board and board officers for the official board for the work of the church in 2018. We lift up our 2 people from the congregation who we want to serve on the very, very important leadership call team, who will be looking and watching this year to see who they might think could step into leadership roles in 2019. It's an important day in our life, and it is a day that is built on gifts. Those of you who are going to be asked to come forward in a few minutes, the reason you are being asked is because someone saw a gift in you that they thought we needed. And they wrote your name on a piece of paper, and they invited the church, they invited the leadership call team to consider whether now might be the time that you move into leadership. Some we talked about and said we should wait a couple more years with them. We don't see them as quite being ready. Some we said they should have been this a long time ago. It's about time. But we are blessed to have so many people in our midst who are willing to come and provide leadership in this church. They come from this service. They come from our 8:30 chapel service. They come from our 5 o'clock gathering coffee house service. All of us together bringing our gifts, our love gifts, of which the greatest gift is love. Our